Welcome in to another week of Stiggies Live. Once again, I'm glad to see you, Stiggies. I'm Ben Hansen, your friend and youth minister, coming to you from the luxurious Stiggies Youth Room here at 10633 John W. Drive. Yes, I'm glad to be here. I hope you're happy to be here too. I know it's like the last week of school for a lot of you, so that's very exciting. Another exciting things, a week from today, our interns get here. So that's exciting. Basically, what I'm saying is summer's right around the corner. I'm really excited for it. It's going to be a great time. It's just going to be a great time. So today we are back in our series of learning how to be good exiles living in this weird digital Babylon culture that we're a part of. Here's our list of the things we want to try to do to be good spiritual exiles as we're living in a place that's different from what we would call a perfect home. Things are a little bit different. But looking at that list, last week we talked about number 2. Today we're going to keep talking about number 2 because we're going to spend this entire time we have together talking about how we use our social media. It's such a very big key part to living a good life, engaging the culture around us. Now, I know a lot of you are too young to have social media yet. That's a decision you may not have made, or you may just have one social media and not really use it much. But for a lot of us, social media is something that's very important to how we do life. It's something we do pretty much every day. And so learning how to use those social media accounts well is a big part of learning how to live a big, full, perfect Christian life together. So we're going to talk about how we use our social medias. Now, I think one of the biggest things to remember as we get started into this is to realize that two things. One, whatever you post online is there forever. It just doesn't go away, right? People can always find it. And two, there's always another person behind that screen. You may feel like you're interacting with just things out there, like it's some kind of game or a video or not real people. But the reality behind it is every time you send a message out, snap somebody back, comment on a post, whatever, you're always talking to a real person on the other end of the screen. So it's really important for us to remember that. So the ways that we engage with other people online matter because those are real people, and this is still in some way real life, right? So as we go about engaging well on these social medias, there's a lot of different ways to go about that. And I thought, you know what? It'd be best to learn some of those ways from some of our own Stiggies this week. So let's listen into what they have to say. So I guess just in general, like the idea that if you're going to get on your phone and go on to any of these social media sites, do you think it's possible to always avoid all of the bad things and never encounter anything that you know you shouldn't? No? No?
No.
How do you guys you can just go one by one. How do you decide to engage the social media that you use? Like, is there any tips and tricks you have, or like a certain mindset you have going into it? Like, what's your policy?
I'm on TikTok a lot, and like whenever I see something that's bad, like I'll realize like, oh no, I shouldn't be like looking at this. And I've realized that there's a button that you can like go into, and like, you can hit the not interested, and you can go through like with the sounds and the user, and like you can say that you like don't want to see from that person. And there's like a lot of good positive stuff that I can see on TikTok, but like you just keep on scrolling, and then there's like bad stuff just right there, like negative and all that.
Yeah, for me, it's like the mindset that I have to have is that social media is like a highlight reel. Like, obviously, no one's gonna put like their worst selves out on social media, so why should we compare ourselves to people's like best versions, you know? So that's like the mindset I try to have. But on TikTok, the not interested button is like a thing that I do all the time. So I like tailor what I see to like the only things that like I like. And on Instagram and Snapchat, some things that I use a lot is you can like mute people. So like if someone just doesn't really make you feel that good about yourself, like it would be kind of not, it wouldn't be like the nice thing to just unfollow them. Like if they're one of your friends, I just kind of mute them, and so I don't have to see their posts or their stories, and it just doesn't really cause any like trouble because they don't know, and it's just like kind of totally eliminates the whole content in general.
Like on all of my social medias, I always try to follow like people who I like know personally or that like I'm friends with, because I know like they're gonna like not be posting things that are bad for me. And then if like I'm following like a celebrity or something who like posts something that like isn't really appropriate or isn't really something that I want to see, then I'll just unfollow them. And a lot of times like Twitter is the main one where I see a lot of things that I'm like, whoa, like I don't want to see that. But on Twitter you can like mute, like what Morgan was saying, like you can like mute things, like you can mute accounts, and then there's also like certain like words and stuff you can put on mute for your account. So sometimes I do that, and I just try to like unfollow accounts if I ever see something that I'm like, whoa.
Like the explore page on Instagram and like the For You page on TikTok and other places. I guess Snapchat has, I'm not really sure what it is. They have a ton of different stories you can click through or whatever. Those pages in general, I feel like, are places you can go and find a lot of bad content. Do you just avoid those pages, or do you like engage in those and just like mute the things you don't want to see?
Well, I guess on Instagram too, like on your feed and on TikTok and like other social medias, like I guess they have an algorithm. So if you don't like a certain subject, just don't like it. And I guess they slowly like tailor that. So like if I do like seeing like certain things on my explore page, then I like them. But if I don't like it, then I don't. So I guess like that's how, even if I do happen to look at it, then like that's how I can avoid seeing things.
I feel like For You page is like the big, like the main part of having a TikTok. So like I look at that, and it, like occasionally there will be like things on there that I don't really want to see, but like I try to avoid that, like by what Morgan said, just like liking things that I want to see. So like I'll always like stuff, like a lot of times like on my For You page is actually like a lot of like Christian TikToks and like youth group TikToks and things like that. And so like I'll like those, and I'll like send them to like Morgan and Addie and whoever, and usually it causes them to like pop up more. And then on Snapchat, there's like the page that's like the all like the news articles and stuff. I like never really look at that because I
Yeah.
know a lot of times there's like bad stuff on there.
Yeah, I would agree. I just try like I definitely, for what I said earlier, for my for you page, like I just try not to like things that I know I don't want to be seeing. And then yeah, I feel like just like the Instagram and explore page and like the Snapchat stories, they can just be like, I don't know, kind of like a dangerous place sometimes that you don't like to find stuff that you don't want to be seeing. So I try to just avoid those areas.
Yeah, for me, the Instagram explore page, I realized at one point, like, I was like, this stuff really isn't good for me to be looking at. So I started just over time, start just transforming it to just sports and like different stuff that I can look at and not be really like looking at something bad. And it just takes like time to change it and not look at the other stuff.
I have on my Twitter like 70 phrases that are muted. And so it's basically like every cuss word spelling you can think of in the book. So if that was going to appear in my timeline, I just wouldn't be like that. It was never tweeted. And then also just things in general that annoy me are muted on Twitter. So like I know some people will like mute political things, so they never see them on their Twitter. They're like, I don't care. So they just don't see them because they mute those words, and so they don't pop up. So I think I have like, like Alabama football muted on my Twitter. Like all these other people that just annoy me, I just have muted. So that's one way that I kind of keep it good. And I feel like over time, I followed the right people on Twitter so that like when I'm there scrolling through content, like it's my newspaper, but also like I'm connected to like a good community of people that I get like resources and ideas and stuff like that from. So, and if I follow someone and they don't really fit that, then I can just unfollow them and move on. So what's your kind of go-to if you feel like you're on a social media app and you've kind of gone down a rabbit hole and found a lot of stuff you don't want to be on? Do you just like exit the app, or do you switch to a different one, or do you just put your phone away, or like What's your way of kind of like moving forward after you've come across a lot of bad stuff?
Most of the time for me, like I kind of do a mix of all of them. Like I'll hit not interested, like close up the app, kind of take a break sometimes, go outside, or like get on a different app and just try to see other stuff that's more positive.
I'm the same. I do the same thing on YouTube a lot. But there are like also a lot of really good videos and like positive things that I watch. So if I like find myself going down like a bad path, then I'll just like exit out of the video and turn on something I know that'll like make me happy and like be positive. And then like for other apps, like normally I'll just close the app if I'm like finding myself getting into like all this like bad stuff that I don't want to see, and then like I'll go back later and like mute certain things or unfollow certain people, but like usually like right in the moment I'd like to get away from it so that I don't start to think on it and dwell on it.
This question of can I watch or should I watch something, which I feel like is something that all of us, like there's kind of a line that we try to draw to be like, okay, that's too bad, or like, okay, I think this is okay, I can watch it. And like as we get older, that line changes some, and depending on the groups we're with and all that kind of stuff. But what do y'all think about that kind of question of can I watch, should I watch, and how does that play out, I guess, in your life? Is that still mostly decided by parents for y'all?
Yeah, I think once I turned 18, honestly, like my parents just kind of gave me like full reign of like what I watch, obviously like within reason, but I don't really have to ask before I watch anything anymore. But we were always taught like growing up, like like you can watch this, but you have to know what they're doing in this show is not something that like we as Christians should really do in our lives. So that's something that I always like have to keep in mind whenever I'm watching certain shows. Like, yeah, like it's entertaining to watch, but like it should just strictly be for entertainment and not something that we should like put into play in our own lives.
Certain ones that I've watched like before and now thinking about it, and I'm like, honestly, like I didn't get anything out of that. Like there probably wasn't a point in me even watching it, and even though it was like entertaining, I'm kind of like, I don't know. It's just sometimes I look back, I'm like, oh, like honest, I don't know why I kept thinking in that.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes there's like a big fear of missing out, but like the truth is, like no one is able to watch everything, so you're always missing out on something. You just kind of choose what you get to miss out on. So when we just log on to social media in general, whenever we're using any kind of technology, going through YouTube, watching movies, going through music, it's really good to get our mindset in the right space before we go into it. We don't just want to mindlessly grab our phone, open up, and just start consuming. No, we want to take this from where we are and go ahead and say, all right, what's my purpose in doing this? And these are some great questions you can ask yourself as you do that. So these are like just in general guidelines to like follow through with, and just kind of like some verses that go along with it. Questions to ask, like, is this the best use of my time? Am I getting on here to encourage and build others up? Am I trying to build up the kingdom of God? Am I seeking to glorify God? Or like what's my purpose behind why I'm doing the things I do? I think that's really a very important question to ask. And I think the ways that we encounter culture around us, like as long as our heart is in the right place, like as long as we're making sure to prepare our heart for it, like we're going to make the right decision. So there's very much a right and a wrong way to look at these social media platforms that we use. And if we come in with the right mindset, we get our heart right and in the right place, it's going to be a great place for us to spread the gospel and live a good life that flourishes using the culture that we have. So Matthew 6:1, we're talking about don't do good things just so that you can go post on social media about them, right? Do good things. It says, watch out. Don't do your good deeds publicly just to be admired by others, because you'll lose your reward that's in heaven, right? The reason we do good things is to bring God glory, but God says the things that we do good that are in secret, he's going to reward us for. So we don't just go do good things and then, all right, I'm doing that just to post on social media. This doesn't accomplish the goals God has for us. Next, Psalm 115 says, not to us, O Lord, not to us, but to your name goes all the glory for your unfailing love and your faithfulness. We shouldn't be approaching social media just as the place that we go to spread our own fame, to make ourselves look the best and the greatest and all this kind of stuff. Our brand cannot totally be about us. It should be primarily about God, because that's when we believe that we're living our best life is when we're living for God. 2 Corinthians 5:20 says this, so we are Christ's ambassadors. God is making his appeal through us. So we have to realize whatever we speak, whatever we say, people look back at the church and the reputation we show online. Well, we're ambassadors for Christ. So whatever we're appealing to, we're also tying Jesus into this, and we're just dragging him along. So are we bringing him places that we want Jesus to be, we want Jesus to shine? Are we trying to highlight the way that Jesus is working in our life? Or are we just using these platforms only for ourselves? And finally, Psalm 101 says, I will refuse to look at anything vile and vulgar, which, hello, that's just a good thing to think of when we do social media. But it's more than that. It's I'll hate to deal with those who are doing wrong. I'm going to have nothing to do with them. That's just not who I'm going to be in life. I'll reject perverted ideas. I'm going to stay away from all this evil. And I'm not going to tolerate people who slander their neighbors, right? This verse 5 is a big one. I'm not going to just follow in line with all the people that use social media as a place just to make fun of other people or trash other people or all these other. That's not the point of why I go on social media. I don't have to follow along in line with everyone else who's doing the same things, who's trying to bring down the same people, who's saying the same things about celebrities or the art they create. I don't have to be that person. I'm not going to tolerate people who slander their neighbors because after all, those celebrities that you see, those are people. There's always another person behind the screen. At the end of verse 5, I will not endure conceit and pride. Pride is a very dangerous thing to have when we go online. And we're not just going to go there just as a place to go and I'm going to show off my pride. I'm just the coolest person in the world. If we're just feeding our egos by the ways we post on social media, we're going to be a pretty bad ending to that. No one wants to see that. No one wants to be a part of that. And if you find a way that people will put you on a pedestal, just know they're eventually going to knock you down because that's the world that we live in. What do y'all think about this list? Is there anything on there that you're like, yeah, that's kind of the main way that I try to do things? Or like, is there anything else you'd add?
I'd say probably, am I posting for the approval of man? Like, I don't really post much, but like when I do, I'm like, am I just posting this for other people to see and like think about me? Or am I posting this like for my feed?
Yeah, I like how it says, is this the best use of my time? Because I think sometimes a lot of us, like especially in this time where we have like a lot of downtime, we can just get in the habit of doing like mindless scrolling. And so I feel like that's like a really good question to ask. Like, is there something better that I could be doing, or am I like actually using this time to like share the kingdom of God?
Yeah, I like the question that says, is what I'm doing encouraging and building others up? Because I feel like a lot of social media like has just become really negative, and it's kind of like the norm to just like be rude to people on social media and to tear others down, like honestly for no reason. And I feel like that's kind of just a part of like the social media culture. And so a lot of times like I'll find myself looking at a tweet or something and I'm like, wait, this is actually like mean. Like I may have like looked at it originally and been like, oh, this is funny. But then if I sit back and think about it, I'm like, this is definitely not going to build others up and not going to bring them any happiness. So a lot of times on my social medias, I really have to think about if what I'm posting and what I'm retweeting and whatever is positive for other people.
Yeah, I really like all of these questions. I definitely need to like implement them more because I feel like a lot of time it's just kind of what Morgan was saying, like, I don't know, like just kind of endless scrolling, like mindless.
What do you think about the idea that like, it's a very odd thought, but like the idea that you're building your own brand with your social media page, do you like think that's the truth, or do you think that's kind of like not really the case? Or like, do you interact with, I guess, your feed and the people that follow you in a way that you're trying to paint yourself in a certain way? Like, is that a good thing or bad thing, or is that not a real thing, or what do y'all think? Like, do you think of yourself as a brand?
I definitely kind of think so. Like the things that whenever I'm like, I keep saying Twitter because I feel like I'm on Twitter a lot, but like if I'm retweeting something, like I always try to think about like, if people see that I retweeted this, like how are they going to think of me? Like, are they going to think highly of me, or are they going to maybe think like, why is she retweeting this? Like, I feel like people can like change the way they think of you based on the things that you post and say on social media. So I'm always super aware, and I just try to keep in mind that like anyone has access to this and anyone can see it. So I just try to post things and like interact on social media in a way that I wouldn't have a problem with anybody in my life seeing it.
It's kind of weird to like think of it as if like you're kind of building your brand. But I know like I post like I guess like on my Instagram stories and like Snapchat, not that much. Instagram I barely ever post on it, and it's honestly just kind of because I like kind of stress about it and like overthink. I'm like, don't like I don't know. It's just like not worth it at that point. And when I'm just trying to like share happy things that happen in my life, like I don't really use it to like, which I think most people don't use it to like bad things that happen. But I just at that point I'm just kind of like, oh, like I don't even really want to share it anymore.
So I don't really like to think of myself as a brand, but like at the end of the day, like colleges and job applications and like just stuff like that, like they do look at your social media and they think that they can get like a pretty good like idea of who you are. Keep that in mind. Like there are people who are always going to be looking at your account, and like everything is always kind of being looked at. So
Yeah, the internet, you post it there, it's there. It doesn't go away.
yeah.
It's always there forever.
Yeah, I definitely do think of it as like you're kind of selling yourself as a brand. Like what Morgan said about colleges and like future jobs, they'll look back at your social medias and they'll like see what you've done. And you can like see people whose careers have been ruined for something they said when they were 15 or 16. And it's just like you got to think about what you're doing before you put it out there.
Probably when I was in high school, this question was starting to get asked because that's when social media really was like picking up and taking off. Like Facebook was really hitting its stride and Twitter was coming on the scene. And so people were like, no, it's terrible to think of yourself as a brand. But like, honestly, that's kind of like sort of how it's kind of become. And that's sort of like second nature. It's like, well, I mean, not really a brand, but like I kind of am building a image online. But kind of as we talked about earlier, like you can do that in a pretty dishonest way. Like Photoshop, really easy to do. You know, standing in the right posture, really easy to do. Like all these little tiny things that people know and they share with each other to kind of make yourself look a certain way for a certain reason. Like those kind of things. Like the way that I want to engage with my social media is so that like the brand I have, I guess, like wants to honor God, whatever he's given me. So back in 2005, 2006, there was a big pushback against people who used Photoshop to make themselves appear one certain way when really they're not. This used to be a really big issue. And nowadays, today, you can just kind of download any app you want to help yourself look however you like to look. And in fact, Instagram already has a ton of filters there ready for you to use that make you look not like how you actually are. And that's usually most of how things go. In fact, it's so uncommon for someone to post something on Instagram without a filter that you have to use hashtag no filter, right? It's really a it's really important to remember that the images that we do see online are not always grounded in reality, in real life. These things have been doctored a lot of times. The ways people look, just look at the other side of the camera. You can see a lot of interesting images of here's what it actually looks like taking the picture versus here's what the picture actually looks like. It's really interesting to see. I think it's a really cool celebration of what art is. It's incredible that people have that type of eye and can use the technology to make these really cool images. But also seeing this should help us remember that what we're viewing on our phones isn't reality. It's not real. And so if it's not real, then how much should it be valued? How much should it be tried to live out in our lives? Now, is there anything wrong with trying to make yourself look as good as possible? No, of course not. You're trying to sell a product, so you wearing makeup and having windblown hair and all that kind of stuff. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And in fact, they're not saying, I look this way all the time. They're just presenting themselves in that way. So this is nothing morally wrong with that at all. In fact, I'd say it's a good pursuit to try to do our best to, stay in shape and all those kind of things. But it's the idea of misleading someone else. And it's kind of this weird, I don't know how to describe it. It's not that we're lying to other people about who we are, but it's the way that we present ourselves online. It's exhausting. It's a long, exhausting process. We feel like we have to keep up this image that we've started for ourselves. And so we're trying to find the right stuff to share and to reshare and repost, while also trying to find ways and pictures and stuff that we can post of ourselves to make people still see us in that same image we presented the first time. And that process is just so exhausting. So I think when it comes to doing social media well, just show yourself. Just be who you are. And if people don't want that or don't like that, then they won't. They'll keep scrolling. They'll go on to something else. But no matter how nice you make yourself presented, people aren't always going to like you anyway. So don't waste all of your time just trying to make yourself look a certain way, because that's a foolish pursuit. Just not going to be glorifying God at the end of the day, just trying to keep yourself, make yourself look better than everyone else all the time. So instead of getting into that comparison game of really, oh, do I look as good as this person, or is my life as cool as it? Yeah, all that stuff. Listen, what we see on social media, it's a highlight reel. It's all edited. It's photoshopped. It's the highest of highs and not the normal of every day. Don't compare yourself to those things, to those ideas, because you're never going to live up to it. You're just going to make yourself feel worse about yourself. But on top of that, once again, you're looking at the person behind the screen now as an idol in your life, something that you hold higher than to what Christ is telling us to live as and what Christ is making us into. So you're making the person that you're seeing that's not real on social media into a different God that you can follow, and you're just furthering yourself from Christ. Why would you do that? Just know that the reality that we live in Christ is so much better. It's so good. And I think it's really interesting to see those real moments that people do post on social media that go viral. Because people are tired of seeing the fake, the edited, the Photoshop. They're tired of that. Because they see that all the time. And they feel that pressure, that weight on their back of trying to live up to whatever the image is at that day and time. Can I look as good as this person doing this, or who wore this best, or all that stuff. Like, it's so tiring. And so we as Christians can come in, can engage in that culture and say, this is the life that I live, and it looks normal. There's no filter. But what you do see shining through is that Christ is working in my life. And that's what's different. That's what's different. And that's a message that when that pops up on social media, it buzzes because people are interested. Now, not everyone's going to be interested, but then again, there's nothing on social media that everyone's interested in. But when we can find ways to share Christ through what we have going on in our life that we see God doing, social media is a great platform to do that. Is this the best use of my time? Am I trying to encourage and build others up, or am I trying to knock people down? Because if I'm trying to knock them down, I probably should just log off. Am I building up the kingdom of God, or am I just working to build up myself? Am I posting for the approval of others instead of looking for approval from God, who's the only one who can actually give us approval that matters in the first place? Am I actually loving others through what I'm consuming? Am I ruining my image that's going to ruin the image of the church as well? Am I setting my eyes on worthless things, trying to find value in things that don't matter? Because when we ask these questions, when we start to come in, consume social media from this mindset, now all of a sudden Like you scroll through your feed and it doesn't feel as heavy because you know your purpose. You're grounded in who Christ tells you you are. And once you're grounded in that, nothing's going to move you away from those things. So if you enter in with these mindset, these questions on your mind, nothing's going to move you. You're going to be stayed linked to Christ. That's a beautiful thing. It's going to allow us to engage the culture around us, to live as good citizens in digital Babylon, and ultimately make a difference because we find a place to be grounded. We don't have to just get blown by all the trends, different directions, and new videos and new music on TikTok, all that stuff. Like, it doesn't blow us one way or the other because we're grounded in Christ, because we know who we are. We know the purpose of us logging onto these social media accounts in the first place. So another week down, another week closer to summer. I cannot wait until we're all together again. Interns get here in a week. Yes, so excited for that. But until then, I love you and I miss you. See ya.